Kathy she's like president of the Georgia Bee. Yeah.
Where?
Yeah, I just ran out of honey from her, so I
Where
was
do
also gonna
we,
come
where
to
can we show some bees? Where can we get some?
Kathy, but she's up in, yeah.
Where's the ones around town?
What about that guy that you went to? Your livestock. I'm sure she's gonna be soon, that's what they want me to do.
That's what I pitched yesterday after you told me I was doing this.
My family has a bee farm in
Where now?
Take a break.
Over at Edenville. It's
Where the heck
just
is that?
3.5 hours long.
Where's that?
3.5 hours.
No, wait.
Is it Alabama somewhere?
Is that northern?
North Carolina.
So Birmingham area.
Huntsville.
Oh, what's the deal? I like it. Yeah, I think I want to say like that.
Yes, you would try. He was talking about
No, but I've heard.
Okay, so we're
I'm not doing that.
I'm going to their house. After their dentist appointment.
Yeah.
No. He had to do that last night. I had to find him. I worked longer than I was supposed to, I guess. Hi, Aaron.
Well, good morning, everybody. Everybody good? All right, well, good deal. Well, we'll get rolling. Well, thank you for coming this morning. As all of you know, the yellow-legged hornet is something we've been dealing with for at least the last month or so. And I appreciate you being here just so we can give you a quick update on where we are and what's going on. As many of you know, I'm Commissioner of Agriculture, Tyler Harper, and joining me this morning are Dr. Tim Davis from the University of Georgia College of Agriculture and Environmental Sciences, Carl Lightfoot with USDA APHIS. He is the State Plant Health Director, and also Mike Evans, who is our Plant Protection Division Director here at the Department of Agriculture. Today, the purpose of this is to announce that we have found and pleased to announce that we have found and destroyed a second yellow-legged hornet's nest on Wilmington Island near Savannah. And as you know, these invasive pests, the yellow-legged hornet, pose a significant threat to our native pollinators here in the state of Georgia, and also our number one industry. As we've discussed before in these conversations already, you know, agriculture is our number one industry. Pollinators like honeybees are required to allow our industry to be successful, and these hornets pose a significant threat to them because they are a predator of those pollinators. While our efforts on the ground continue, it is important to note that this is a significant victory and another significant step forward for our state and for our agricultural industry as we fight the establishment of the hornet in the state of Georgia. I want to thank specifically Mike, you and your team, and our entire Plant Protection Division, as they have been on the ground since day one, fighting this hornet, working tirelessly to locate and eradicate the hornet, but also our partners at the University of Georgia, at the College of Agriculture, and at USDA for their partnership and their continued help and support in this effort. I also want to extend a thanks to our friends across the borders, both at Clemson University and at the University of Florida, who are now collaborating with us and our teams here in the state of Georgia to ensure that the yellow-legged hornet does not spread to their states. Before getting into the specifics of the second nest that we're here to talk about this morning, I just kind of want to go through our operational response because I don't think we've talked about that specifically, about how we have worked to do this, what our work has been like on the ground to find and eradicate these hornets in our state. We currently have 2 teams of 4 on the ground in the Savannah area, and they are actively setting and checking traps, responding to reported sightings, and surveying for additional hornets. So far, our teams have deployed 134 traps in the area around the initial detection, which are routinely checked for any trap hornets. Additionally, in coordination with our partners at the University of Georgia College of Ag, as well as UGA Extension, we are conducting public outreach to educate Georgians on the yellow-legged hornet and are directly engaging with the stakeholders and stakeholder groups, including beekeepers and pest management professionals in the area. Since our efforts begun, we have made confirmed detection of the yellow-legged hornet in 12 different locations around Wilmington Island, White Marsh Island, and the town of Thunderbolt. 9 of these detections were in response to sightings reported by concerned citizens. 3 of these detections were made by our team in the traps that we have set. The location of these traps, the confirmed detection, and the eradicated nest are shown on the map to my right. So if you'll look at the map, you'll see the locations that we have set up, where our traps are set up, where we have seen those detections, and also where the nests were located, to kind of give a visual of where we've been working and what's been going on. I'm also happy to announce that USDA, and we appreciate their ongoing support, has provided the department with additional funding to continue these efforts. On behalf of the department, as well as our farmers and producers and consumers across this state, I want to express my sincere gratitude for that additional help to USDA. So Carl, thank you and your team, and please pass that message along that we appreciate the help to help us continue these efforts. I also want to thank our friends at the Washington State Department of Agriculture for recently providing us with electronic tracking and monitoring equipment, which will be put to use as soon as possible. We will definitely continue to leave no stone unturned and utilize every tool in our toolbox to eradicate the hornet from our state. Now, in regards to the nest, on Friday, September 15th, the department staff located a second nest under a bridge in Wilmington Island. This is in stark contrast, obviously, to the first nest that we found that was over 80 feet up a pine tree in more of a residential area. But this is consistent with what has been seen in Europe, where they have been dealing with the yellow-legged hornet as well. Department staff and our team reached out to the same pest management professionals who helped us with the first nest, and that nest, the second nest, was destroyed that evening, the evening that it was found, on Friday evening the 15th. The nest was located using a variety of methods that essentially allow our staff on the ground to reduce the area in which the hornet could possibly be located. The first method that our team has been using is capturing, marking, and releasing hornets to estimate the distance from the trap location to the nest. Secondly, our team has been taking the hornets that were captured, taking them to different locations, releasing those hornets so their flight direction can be observed. As we continually did that process, multiple iterations, obviously, the search area got smaller and smaller, and our team was able to locate the location of the nest specifically, and were able to find the nest. After the nest was destroyed, it was examined by Dr. Lewis Bartlett from the University of Georgia and Dr. Jamie Ellis from the University of Florida. They identified developing hornets within the nest and confirmed that there was no evidence of the production of males or queens at the time of destruction. I think that is very significant to point out because the production of males and queens is essential to the establishment of a new colony or a new nest. The fact that this process has not started happening yet in this particular nest increases our chance of successful and complete eradication. Just as a point of note, sterile females, the worker hornets are all sterile females, and the production of queens and males indicates the colony is deteriorating and preparing for the establishment of a new colony by a reproductive queen. This nest had not gotten to that point, and so we feel very confident that hopefully that this increases, as I said a second ago, our chance of eradication, and that there will be no other nests created out of the hornets from this particular site. Additionally, science from the University of Georgia scientists from the University of Georgia have sequenced the genetics of the hornets that we trapped from the first nest and the first eradication, and evidence suggests that these hornets originated in Asia. DNA samples have been taken from hornets from this second nest, and genetic analysis of these samples are currently ongoing. I think as we continue our effort, it's important for our message from the department, especially to the citizens in the Savannah area and also across the state. Please continue to report any suspected sightings of the yellow-legged hornet to the Department of Agriculture. An online reporting form and additional information about the hornet is available on our website at agr.georgia.gov. It's prominently displayed on our home page. Georgians with additional questions or concerns can definitely reach out to the email link that we have set up, yellow.leg.hornet@agr.georgia.gov. I lastly want to thank the beekeepers across our state, especially those beekeepers in the Savannah area, for their attention to this situation. They have been tremendous in helping us find and eradicate the hornet and work to eradicate the hornet. I will say this to commercial beekeepers and other citizens. I think it's vital to our effort that we have live specimen to track and to trace. And because this allows our team to more quickly find any additional nest if there are any. So if you do find, if you're a commercial beekeeper and you find a hornet, please report that. And please, if you're able, keep it alive, because that will help our team come to your location and begin the processes that we've been implementing to find and eradicate any other nest that may be out there. So I think it's important to ensure that we get that point across. So those live specimens are very important to tracking, and we're asking you to resist the urge to kill those hornets and immediately report those sightings to the department. So, as I've said many times, our team has went above and beyond, and I can't thank our team enough for the work that they have done. We hit the ground running whenever we first saw the original sighting of the yellow-legged hornet in the Savannah area, when we first got the initial report, when we confirmed that. As you know, within 2 weeks, we found the first nest. We eradicated the first nest, and now here we are a couple of weeks later and finding a second nest, and we have eradicated that nest as well. Our team is going to remain vigilant. This is not over. This is a long process. I think for purposes of understanding, eradication means no sightings within a 3-year period. And I think that's important to point out. So eradication is a long process. So our team is going to work really hard to ensure that we get to that point. So with that, I'm going to pass it off to Dr. Tim Davis with the College of Ag for any comments that he may have, and to maybe go in a little more scientifically on what we're dealing with. But I'm going to pass it off to Dr. Davis. Dr. Davis.
Thank you, Mr. Good.
Yes, sir.
First off, I want to congratulate you all on this victory, particularly Mike and,
Yes, sir.
and David Williams and their teams that are out there. They're working hard at this and doing a fantastic job. My name is Dr. Tim Davis. I'm a PhD in entomology, that's the study of bugs. And my area has always been fire ants. So invasive species are kind of my thing. And I'm the county agent in Chatham County. I'm also the director of the Coastal Georgia Botanical Garden, but I'm also a beekeeper. And we've been working with beekeepers for a number of years. Myself, Dr. Delaplane, Keith Fielder, and one of the things we've been educating them on are the threats to honeybee keeping. It's not a simple process these days. There's small hive beetles, there's varroa, and this is just another thing that puts pressure on it. And one of the things I'm excited about is beekeepers who went to our trainings who first identified this thing. They took pictures, they sent it to my office, they sent it to Mike and said, we think this is what it is. My master gardeners that I trained, they took those pictures and said, we think this is what it is. And that's what started this whole process. And so it's exciting that when your job is to educate and teach people about science, to see that come to fruition. And it's exciting to see that GDA and the university and the county officials and USDA and the beekeepers and the citizens And going global, you start talking about Washington State and Europe and all these people working together on this problem. We're still learning a lot. I took my first entomology class in the 1980s. I've never realized how many insects have yellow legs until now. So we're still learning, and we are out there educating. I've talked to beekeeping associations along the coast already. We're getting ready to talk to pest control operators, because the most important thing in success of this is going to be the public involvement. We need them to keep reporting, keep looking, keep trapping, and report that so that we can continue to define where they are, and we use that information to help find these nests. And the way that goes is you capture one of these hornets and you tag it and you let it go and you take a compass heading. Which way is it going? And then how long is it before it comes back? And that gives us kind of an idea of distance. And you get more points and you follow that, and pretty soon you got these lines that all cross, and that's how you narrow it down to this. It's a tedious process. There's technology. You can get little GPS trackers, we can glue those to the thorax, but you can't get those on Amazon apparently. So it's going to be a few weeks before we can get those. And we've got those ordered, and we're using all the technologies and all the tools available to fight this. And education and public outreach and the public's involvement is going to be very, very key to our success in this.
Exactly.
Mr. Commissioner?
Thank you, Dr. Davis. And Dr. Davis is right. I want to start off, I think it shows the importance of not only the partnership, but also the importance of our extension service and our research teams at the University of Georgia and the work that you do every single day. It's definitely vital. To your point on the electronic trackers, I made the comment of the mention of this just a second ago. We did get some from the state of Washington that we hope to be deploying very soon. We have had some electronic trackers on order for quite some time. Unfortunately, they have been difficult to come across, but that will help our team in additional tracking methods in relation to this hornet. I know I didn't mention this earlier. I meant to, but to my right is portions of the second nest. Obviously, this isn't the entire nest. This is much smaller than the first nest that we found and were able to eradicate. But this is portions of the second nest. And for those of you that are curious, that is a yellow-legged hornet in that vial in the front. So give you a little closer idea of what this specific hornet looks like more in person. So with that, I'll open it up for any questions that you may have.
How big was the second one that you found?
Mike,
basketball?
about a basketball. It was about 2 basketballs.
Okay.
And I know y'all are still trying to figure it out, but where are y'all thinking right now these could have come from?
So, the genetic testing has confirmed Asia, right? So we know that it come from that part of the world. How they got here is still a question, but it's, you put the pieces together. The port is in Savannah, and so it's very likely that that's the method of transportation and how they got here. But we have confirmed that they did come from Asia.
Are you guys planning to do anything specific? Because Port Wentworth is a huge port. I mean, I know lots of companies bring their stuff in from Asia to here and have warehouses. Yep. At the airport, you go through, you have the Beagle Brigade checking for people with, is there thoughts of trying to do something where things coming from Asia, you guys are checking to try to track down, to try to stop invasive pests from coming in?
So I will say this, USDA, and Carl may can speak to this more specifically, but USDA, Customs and Border Patrol, the federal government primarily, just like they do at airports, are on the ground in our ports across the country. So they do that work at the ports just like we do at airports. So they're constantly monitoring, so we're going to continue our efforts with them and our partnership with them and ensuring that they're looking for any indications in any shipments that may come in specific to the hornet. But our federal partners are constantly working on that and constantly monitoring that.
Is this something where it's pretty much contained to that? You think that small area near Savannah?
So right now, with everything that we know and and the knowledge that we have currently, and if Mike wants to speak to this a little more, I'll be happy to let him do it, but based on what we know and the reports that we have, the sightings that we have, what you're looking at is where we believe it's confined to as of right now. We have no reason to believe the Hornet is anywhere else outside of this area in Savannah. However, other parts of the state, that we will investigate that as we have been doing. Those reports do come in quite regularly. We investigate those. We either confirm or deny those sightings. But so far, this map shows where we are currently dealing with the yellow lake one.
For the average person that's not a farmer or a beekeeper, how is this going to impact them?
So for the average consumer, I think it's important to know, number one, agriculture impacts your life every single day. The food, the fiber, the shelter that our farmers and producers and ranchers across the state produce, it don't just show up on the grocery store shelf. Blueberries and watermelons are an example of products that require pollination. Well, without honeybees, you can't have blueberries. Without honeybees and pollinators, you can't have watermelons. There are over 100 different crops across the country that require pollination by pollinators. And so this hornet is a predator of those pollinators. And if this hornet was to establish itself in such a way that it had a detrimental impact on our honeybee or pollinator population, that means less watermelons, that means less blueberries, that means less other crops that are grown through pollination, which means that you're not going to be able to find them on the grocery store shelf, or if you do, in some cases it could mean higher prices at the grocery store. So it does translate to the consumer, and I think that's the important part about this. I think most people, when they think of a hornet, I think most people think of the hornets that we deal with, but this is a different type of hornet, and can have detrimental impacts on our agricultural industry, which in turn translates into issues that the consumers could see in the marketplace.
Have there been any more sightings since the second nest was eradicated?
So the nest was eradicated on Friday, and I'll flip that over to Mike in relation to any confirmed sightings since Friday. Mike?
No, excuse me. Since Friday, we've not had any new sightings. We run our traps, or we check our traps twice a week, and we did have a hornet in one of the traps. So we're not sure if that was before Friday or not, but we have not found any.
But it was
new
discovered.
sightings.
It was discovered in the trap after the second nest was eradicated. But you don't know if it came there before you guys got the nest, right?
That's correct.
Has anyone been stung?
To our knowledge, no, none of my folks have been stung. All hornets, wasps, bees are a little bit defensive when you get around their nest, their home. They want to protect that. But this one is, we've noticed that it seems to be not what you would call docile, but it's not really defensive like you think of a yellow jacket nest. It's very defensive. This one just does not seem to be defensive, and none of my guys have gotten stung, or the pest control, pest management folks that we've utilized.
Just last thing on that same thread, y'all been dealing with this for a little over a month now. What all have you learned about these insects that have surprised you, perhaps?
We have learned a lot. Talking with some of the folks in the UK has been very helpful because they're dealing with insect. USDA folks we've talked with that have been looking into the insect, and what we've just simply experienced, baits, which ones seem to be preferred, and it's been a learning process for us to do what's called beelining, or finding a hornet, taking, as Dr. Davis mentioned, taking a direction. So it's been an experience for us, but we're learning, and I think it definitely paid off in finding the second nest.
Mike, is there, are you encouraging consumers, residents to set traps themselves? Or are there any resources people can go to learn how to make those?
We sent out an email to some of the people who have contacted us, and the public's participation is absolutely key. We've received over 3,000 contacts, and most of those have been natives, or there's called a giant hornet that came in the 1800s. So that's primarily what we're receiving, but it's good for the public to do that. Even though almost every State Department of Agriculture does surveys for exotic pests, most of the pest detections are still from a homeowner saying, that just doesn't look right. I want to let someone know. So homeowners, citizens are key for detection. And as far as trapping, yes, Dr. Davis spoke at the Coastal Empire Beekeeping Association and provided information to beekeepers how to make a nest. And we've provided some of that information as well. And we certainly intend to include that a lot more next year, but this year is absolutely fine for people to make a nest and let us know what they find.
Does this map depict everywhere that you all are on the ground looking, or are you expanding the territory?
So our territory is based on confirmed sightings, right, of where we're looking. So this map currently depicts where our team is working. And obviously we will expand that depending on whether or not we get confirmed sightings or confirmed locations. But we're going to try to hone it in pretty specific. Do you have anything to add to that, Mike?
No, sir, I think you covered it.
Okay.
Does that map represent an expansion of previous sightings or previous maps you might have made?
You want to speak to that?
When we were first notified by the beekeeper, which was really good, as Dr. Davis mentioned, it was a first-year beekeeper, and he noticed something different and said something to someone, which was good. So our idea was to put out a big loop. Let's see if there's anything on the outside of the perimeter. We didn't see anything. And so now we're focusing on kind of this, it's a big area, but it's a much smaller area. And trapping and monitoring is definitely key to it. So yes, we intend to continue to deploy more traps, but it's a long process. It's at least, it's 3 years of negative data. So we're in this for several years.
Is there any evidence, though, that the territory has expanded since you started looking?
No, we don't have enough information on that.
This may be a stupid question. Does it take a lot of hornets to build a new nest? Like if you didn't eradicate all of them when you got the second nest, could they have a couple of them flown somewhere else to build a new one? Or is it something that requires hundreds to be able to do that?
Okay. Yeah. Hornet wasp biology, the workers are all sterile females. And as far as we know, or the science is that no, they can't go and found a new colony because they're sterile females.
However, if a queen can establish a nest. So it's very possible that the first nest that we found was a single queen that established that nest on her own. And so, to your point, it doesn't take multitudes of hornets to establish a nest. It can be established by a single queen. You want to talk to that, Dr. Davis?
Yeah, so the life cycle on the thing, on these hornets is an annual life cycle. A single mated queen harbors over the winter. And the reality is an invasion could have happened from a single mated queen. So, when you start talking about inspections at the port or things like that, they're looking for an insect that's 1 inch long in 1 million containers. And that's if it's the port. Maybe it's the military base. Maybe it's the airport. Maybe it's somebody who went and visited that area and it came back in their suitcase. Looking for a single insect that's 1 inch long. So she's going to harbor over the winter. She's going to establish what they call a primary nest, and she's going to raise out a few workers who are sterile females. And then usually June or July, at least in Europe, and again, that's a question that we have because we're not Europe and our weather's different. So sometime June and July, they establish what's called a secondary nest, and that's what we're finding. That's these very large nests, and they can build up to about 6,000 workers in that period of time. Sometime here in the fall, and that's why this is encouraging, because sometime in the fall, they begin to develop reproductives. And this is encouraged because we're not seeing the reproductives in here. Once they have reproductives, they go up and they mate in the air, they come back, and then eventually in the fall, as the weather cools, the workers begin to die, the drones, the males die, and the females, these mated females disperse and goes back to that, and we're back at that life cycle. So this is encouraging because there's no reproductives in this particular nest. That means we've got a little bit more time than we thought we might have had to work on this problem. So, that's kind of the life cycle. That's what we're looking at. We're trying to get as many of these out of here as we can. And that's why it's important for us to be looking for these, important for us to be finding these nests and destroying these nests, because we want, what's going to happen at some point is if there's nests out there that we don't find, we get that dispersal and we start this process all over again in the spring.
Thank you, Doctor. I think Dr. Davis made a really good point in saying that it's very possible that all of this could have started by a single queen that could have come into the United States or into the Savannah area by a multitude of different vectors. So it's hard to your point, to your question earlier, and I think he elaborated on that. It's hard to really know where to look, right? Because it could have been a hibernating female and nobody would have ever knew that it was there. So it's very difficult, but at the same time, we've got to remain vigilant in what we're doing. But it is very exciting is not the right word. I guess it is a little bit of the right word. It's exciting to know that we're finding these secondary nests, what we're calling the secondary nest, as without the reproductive specimen. So that's a good thing for us, because if we can get ahead of that, that gives us more of an opportunity to eradicate these hornets before they have an opportunity to establish themselves again next year. Any other questions?
We knew they were spotted by beekeepers. Did the beekeepers notice that they were in fact attacking their hives?
So I believe, yes, they were, I'll let y'all speak to that. The beekeepers did notice that the hornets were attacking their hives. They were spotted by that, which is kind of how the beekeepers spotted it, but they turned it over to our team. Dr. Davis, I'll let you speak to that a little more. You were on the ground, you know a little more detail on that.
The behavior that was noticed is called hawking. So the hornet will hang around outside the hive, and as the bees come and go, it snatches them out of the air. And then it bites off the heads, bites off the abdomen, takes off the legs, and uses just the thorax, because that's where all the wing muscles are, and that's high protein. So that behavior then out there outside the hive is what the beekeepers have been noticing. And it's not just the first one, it's most of them noticing this. In fact, one of the gals who went through my class, she called me. She had swatted it down because it was doing that, wanted to know if that's what it was, and she actually used what's called a queen excluder. It's just like keeps the queen from moving to different places in there. She swatted it down with this big old thing. And so, they are noticing the hawking behavior of these individual hornets that are attacking the nest. And that's actually what they do. It causes the honeybees to change behavior. And just like if somebody's harassing you, it's hard for you to type on your computer when somebody's talking to you. And that's kind of what's happening. So they change the behavior, they produce less honey, and they do less pollination. And I want to point out, we talk about pollination being important for food. Pollination is also important for fiber. When you start talking about cotton plants that need, the clothes you're wearing, everything but my jacket today is cotton.
Yep.
And this can affect that kind of an industry. So,
Any other questions? Well, thank y'all very much. Thank y'all for coming out. Glad to have you with us. Appreciate it. Just help us keep spreading the message as we work to completely eradicate the hornet in the state of Georgia. Y'all have a wonderful day. Thank you.